Hi, and welcome to another one of my online painting lessons. For this lesson we're using a 24 by 24 inch canvas. I'm going to start out with a large round brush. For my colors today I have alizarin crimson, burnt sienna, ultramarine blue, and yellow ochre with titanium white. My canvas is pre-primed and stretched on stretcher bars. What I'm going to do to start out with is take a little yellow ochre and some white. And this is going to be our sky color. And what I'm going to do is just open up an area of sky here. We're going to have clouds going in and around this area. So just blocking in. And we'll have a set of clouds down here and a set up here. What I'm going to do is go a little bit more white. Down here, we'll open up the sky a little bit. Down here as well. But we're going to have clouds streaming across. All right, next I'm going to take my yellow ochre, a little bit of alizarin, and then a little bit of my ultramarine blue. I'll go a little bit more white, a little more yellow. It's going to be the start of our cloud color. So I'm going to start blocking in here in these other areas. I'll go a little bit more white, a little more yellow. Kind of want it to blend into the sky a little bit better. So I want these clouds to kind of be streaming across the sky. So up where the cloud and the sky meet, just really light pressure. Just with the tip of the brush, we're feathering that out. You can do little streaming areas coming off. I'll block in more over here. Again, light pressure as I go up into the sky. Go a little bit more yellow, white. So we're getting a little bit of variety within our cloud as well. I'll go a little bit more white down low. Okay, and I'll keep blocking in and then lightly feathering. Keep in mind that as we create this sky, we can block in more sky color. So if you get to the point where you feel like you need more openings, which we'll discuss a little bit later, we can block those in later. What I'm trying to do now is just use the tip of the brush to keep all of the edges nice and soft as I fill this in. Maybe there'll be a little opening over here. We'll play around with that here in just a few minutes. I am going to take my white, a little yellow ochre. I'm going to open this spot up here, right here. So just a little opening in the sky. I'll keep it open right up here too. I'll go all the way across. All right, I'm going to go back to my cloud color now. I'm going to go a little bit more ultramarine blue and alizarin. So getting a little bit more purple. I'll go a little bit more yellow mixed in with that as I get closer to the sky, and I'll again use the very tip of the brush to bring those two together. All right, so I'm going to keep with this slightly more yellow color as I work my way across. And again, we can always open up more sky later if we need to. Okay, I'll go back now. A little bit more blue, alizarin, yellow. All right, so we're getting some really cool, interesting colors and shapes going on. I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to go a little bit more alizarin and yellow as I move up, giving it a little bit warmer color. And I think I'm going to open up the sky up here as well. So I want to try to blend that down a little bit, so I'm bringing that color from up top down in through the middle just a little bit. I'm going to go even more alizarin, yellow, some white. As we get up top here. Then again, trying to blend it down. I'll go a little bit more yellow as we tie that in to the cloud down below. Okay, and then I'll go back to my more purple color as I come up to the very top. All right, then I'm going to clean my brush off. I'm going to take my yellow and white and I'm going to block in this open sky area. So it's a little bit darker than this section, but not much. And what I want to do is just slowly kind of work it in around the clouds, allowing the edges to become softened. Okay, and I want to keep filling in all these little open spots, and I'll end up going over the sky again a little bit with cloud color in just a minute. All right, so got some interesting things going on. What I want to do, I think, is actually work this sky all the way up off the top here for part of it. I want to make sure all my little white flecks of canvas are covered. We can always go over this a little bit more. What I want to do now is kind of look at my composition and see if there's anywhere I want to add in sky. I think over here, I'm just going to take my yellow and white. We'll add in a little opening right there. And I think I'm just going to kind of fill in a little bit more through here just to make sure that all my white little flecks of canvas are covered. I just want to kind of inspect. As I go down a little bit lighter. So we've got a little bit more white mixed in. We're going to do a really light, almost like a glaze. I think what I'll do is also kind of break it up a little bit more down here. So you can just pop in any area that you want to break up, have a little bit more open. I think even up here, I'll open this up a little bit more. Lots of variety. Even in the middle of the cloud, we'll say right up through here. All right, I'm going to go back up into my cloud color, so a little bit of alizarin, blue, and yellow. Now I want to kind of scrub in a few more wispy clouds coming across up here. Maybe put little tails on the ends of some of these. Alright, some nice pink color there, I like that. I'm going to work that down just a little bit through the clouds down below. Not too much, just mainly at the top of each section. Just scrubbing in a little bit more color. Let me do another little faint cloud there. I'm going to incorporate some of that color down in. So I'm just scumbling at this point, dry brushing, scrubbing, just not really hard, but just enough to get some color to come off the brush onto the canvas. A little too much there, I'll just wipe it off. So by scrubbing, we're keeping the colors nice and soft. All right, I'm happy with that. What I'm going to do now is add in just a little bit of a hill down below, and then we'll start in with our landscape. So, I'm sorry, not really doing a landscape today, but we're going to add in our balloons. So what I'm going to do is just take a flat brush. I'm going to take just a little bit of my yellow and white and just a touch of my blue and alizarin. I'll go a little bit more yellow. Just trying to get a color that's slightly darker than that cloud color down below here. And what I'm going to do is just a nice little mountain just down here in the corner, just to give somewhat of a grounded area in the painting. You can see it's going to be very subtle down at the base. Maybe I'll add another little one right here. Okay, so it gives just a little bit of ground. All right, I'm going to let that dry to see where it ends up value-wise. Sometimes things dry a little bit darker or lighter, depending on the colors. So I'm going to let that dry, and then once that dries, I'll make a determination if I want to move on to the next step or add in just a few more layers. Remember, we can always add in layers in the surrounding sky later on in the lesson if we need to. Okay, for my next step, I'm going to take a rough sketch of a hot air balloon that I drew. We're having a hot air balloon festival here in Maine, and so I like to draw it out first, provide you with a sketch that you can transfer, because I like to transfer my sketches, especially when it's something this symmetrical. It's something I like to draw out first to try to make sure I get it right. What I'm going to do is just place it. We're going to place it up here in the top. We'll place it just above the halfway point. I'm going to tape it on there. So I've got transfer paper underneath. And with the transfer paper, you want to have the shiny side down. So I'm just going to put that on here. I'm going to transfer my sketch onto my canvas. You can freehand it if you prefer, but like I said, I really like to get the symmetry as good as I can in these. So I'll just tape it on here and I'll transfer the sketch. So basically what I'm going to do is just take my mechanical pencil. I like using a mechanical pencil, and I'm just going to lightly go over my lines, so basically just tracing my sketch. And all this does is it gives me a good guideline to go by when I'm about ready to paint. So you can do a sketch beforehand, like I said, to make sure you get a nice accurate drawing. Okay, and then I'll sketch the whole outside here. This is the part where it's important, because a hot air balloon is so round that sometimes if you just try to paint it straight onto the canvas, it can be a little time consuming and frustrating to get it accurate. And something like this, we want to make sure we're getting accurate. Okay, even the transfer won't be accurate. We'll have to make adjustments as we go. So I've got a reference photo for you to look at. It's a picture I took actually at a soccer game as the balloons were going by. So I'm just going to go down each one of these lines. Again, the spacing of the lines on the balloon are pretty important. And if you see me go over one twice, that's just because I lost track of where I was. You don't have to go over them twice, but sometimes it's easy to lose track of where you were, especially if you keep going back and forth, side to side like I'm doing right now. Again, this will just end up being a guideline. You can see those are pretty rough lines that I just did there. The important part is the painting anyway, so this part is all about getting something we can work with. It's just like using a projector, I guess. A lot of artists use projectors. I prefer to freehand the sketch first and then use my own sketch on the canvas. All right, so it should be all transferred now. You see, it's lightly transferred onto the canvas. Now what I want to do is solidify my sketch with a bit of paint. So I'm going to take a liner brush. Now I'm going to take some of the colors I used for my sky. So I'm going to take a liner brush, a little bit of yellow, some alizarin, and some blue. I'll thin that down with some water, and what I'm going to do is just go over the lines here. so that way we don't have any more graphite on the canvas. So with this angle, we're looking up underneath the balloon a little bit. So this part under here will end up being dark. So I'm just going to block that in right now while I've got the paint going. Just going really careful. We might darken this a little bit more later. We'll see how it looks when we start adding in some more color. So now I'm going to just go along the lines again. So we've got the basket here. And we may end up painting in a person in there. I'm going to go right up here now and just paint in this opening to the balloon. Because I think what I'll do is actually make this opening a darker color. I'm just going to grab a little yellow, some alizarin. I'm going to block that in with that color. Okay, and we'll smooth down the paint. I got a little too much water in there, so it's not sticking all that great. So I will have to layer it over that opening one more time a little bit later. I do want to try to smooth down the paint so there's not too much texture in this section. So just looking for little ridges and trying to smooth those down a little bit. All right, I'm going to go back to a little bit of blue and alizarin. Now I want to go over these other lines, going really careful here. A little opening right here. You can see the sky through. It's where the balloon and the, I'm not really sure what it's called, so I don't even know what to attempt to call it, but it's the apparatus that connects the basket and the balloon. Okay, it's kind of like a big flap. And that's also dark, so I'm just filling that in. I'll come back to that part in a minute. I want to have my reference photo there just to make sure I tidy up all that stuff. Because even on a transfer is not, it's not anything that really, the only thing it helps when painting is getting an accurate drawing. And even then, if you're not looking at the reference photo and you don't remember what was what, your drawing will end up not being all that accurate. So you want to have your reference drawing around. I'm just going to block in this whole bottom part nice and dark, and I'll adjust the colors a little bit later. But don't think of transferring a drawing or a sketch or even using a projector as cheating, because the painting process itself isn't all that easy. So you should practice drawing. You should get good at drawing so that way you can freehand sketches, especially if you're doing something in person or from a model or anything like that. But if you're just starting out and you want to paint and you aren't great at drawing, you can use a projector. The grid method is probably my favorite way of getting people who haven't drawn or who haven't developed the skill in drawing yet to get a good sketch on theirs. And at the same time, not only do they get a good sketch on there, but they also get some practice with drawing overall. Because even with the grid method, you have to learn relationships and how things relate to each other, and shape, angle, form, all those types of things you have to learn even when using the grid method. Tracing, that doesn't really teach you much, but it can work well if you're good at painting and you just need you need something on there that you can reference. That works too. Don't be afraid to use tools to make your life easier, in other words. All right, so what I want to do now is start working on the actual balloon. I'm going to go a little bit more yellow. And I want to go really careful now. Just really take your time. Really light pressure on the brush. And it's probably best to try to paint within the line and push the paint out to it. So that way, if you mess up on a line, you're messing up on the inside of the balloon, not on the outside of it. So starting in, pushing the paint out till you get to the line, and then trying to follow that line. You can see how difficult it can be to get a really accurate shape. So start within the balloon and push out to the line, and then bring it in. Whew! Stressful getting those lines. All right, since I'm right-handed, that side's going to be a lot easier. So, to make my life easier, I'm going to turn it upside down so I can go the same way and push out. All right, now I'm going to turn it up on the side so I can still go that same direction and I'm not blocking my view with my hand. So remember, always use tools to make your life easier, and moving the canvas around is one of those tools. You don't always have to paint it up and down. Alright, so I got that initial line up there. I'll just tidy up here. Alright, what I'm going to do now is take that same color. I'm going to add a little bit of white to it. And now we're going to freehand a balloon. So, not as big, but I'm going to show you how I would approach freehanding one. And this one's just going to be more like a silhouette because it's further off in the distance. So we're trying to make it similar to the cloud color, and we can darken this a little bit later. So let me just test it here, and that's a good color. So what I'm going to do is just make a little shape and work inside out. So what I'm looking for is almost making a circle with a little drop down. Okay, and then I can, if I want to make it bigger, I can just push the edges further. Okay, and then we'll put a little basket underneath, just a little indication of a little basket. What I'm going to do is make this a little bit wider. And what I'll probably do is eventually make, I'll either add some detail to that or make it darker. But right now it's kind of just a placeholder for my composition, because I don't really know what I want to make that look like yet until I finish this major one. But what I want to do is add in a couple more balloons way off in the distance. So I'm actually going to go a little bit more white. I'm going to do another one, go a little bit darker, so try to make that just slightly darker. We're going to do another little one a little bit further away. So you're making a little upside down raindrop shape. Little basket underneath. Okay, I'm going to take that same one, and again I might make this darker later on. I'm going to take that same one, same color, same type of size. Upside down raindrop. A little dot underneath. All I'll go a little bit darker. We'll make one up here, it's a little bit bigger. Okay, before I move on to that balloon, I'm just going to take a round brush, a little bit of my yellow, and some white. And I want to try to lighten up the sky a little bit down here. Just trying to increase some of the contrast. So bringing that value up down here to brighten up the sky. So just doing a little layer and then keeping it a little bit darker up higher. So come down here. Going a little bit lighter. You can break up the clouds a little bit more if you'd like to. Okay, and I'll call that good for right now. What I'm going to do next is, now that I've let the lines dry around my balloon, I'm going to take just some of that pink color that I've been using for all these balloons. So I'm just going to touch this one up a little bit. Just rounding out that edge just a little bit there. I'm going to take that pink color that I've been using up here with that balloon, and I'm going to come down these lines. Again, pretty much just placeholders for now. Try to be really solid on your brush stroke. If you want to use a maul stick or a ruler to hold your hand or lean your hand against, that will work really well. So take a break in between each one. I have to take a break because I usually hold my breath as I do these lines. See, I got off on that one, which is okay. We can touch that up, tidy up later on in the painting. All right, so this one right down the middle basically. Keep the water nice and thin. I should say that keep the paint nice and thin, not the water. The water is already thin. We're using water to keep the paint thin. You can see how much I'm concentrating by the things I'm saying. Again, this is why we spend that time transferring the sketch. So that way you can take a little concentration out of the picture. All right, so now what I want to do is I want to add kind of a little bit of detail to this balloon up here. I'm going to take some of my yellow, a little bit of white, actually we'll go a little more saturated there. I'm going to follow this design here. Okay, so just a tiny little bit of detail on there. Straight line down. Then a curved shape. Another one. Then they kind of disappear onto the sides. But my light source is going to be, I'll do one more over here. My light source I'm going to have be left to right. So I'm going to take some white, lighten that color up, a little more yellow. I want to lighten this stripe up top and a little bit on this one. You can kind of have them disappear as you go down the side there. So just tiny little indications of highlight. I'm going to go a little bit more white. So you want to think of kind of like a ball. If you were to draw a ball, there would be a highlight out on that light source side. This side I'm keeping a little more pink because it's cooler. And then the bottom parts of these lines I'm keeping a little more pink as well. I'll go back to more of that yellowish color. I'll do a little bit as we go around, not too much. Add a little more white and yellow. Now again, think of that, if you're painting a sphere, this top part's going to have a highlight on it. And you don't want the highlight to just stop, so you'll take a little bit of pink and extend that lighter color. And then I'll go back to my yellow and white. We're going to lighten that up again. I'm going to hit that same kind of spot. So the concentration of color is right up here. Then it fades out as it goes down. Go a little bit more white. Then we can hit a little, almost kind of like a hot spot. All right, as I sit back, I can see, I want to go back to that lighter pink and extend from that hot spot just a little bit more. So this is all more pink, less yellow, because we want that to recede and to cool off. There, that's all the detail you really need for a distant balloon. We'll maybe come back to that. I think that's pretty good though. What I'm going to do now is add in a little mountain right here. So I'm going to go into my yellow, and alizarin, and some blue, some white, this should be a little bit darker here. I'm going to add in just another mountain shape. That's kind of up in the foreground here. But we really don't want peaked mountains because the balloons probably wouldn't be flying too high over great big mountains. So what we'll do is we'll kind of add a tree look to it, and we'll just tap our brush going along so it's more of a tree-like mountain, a mountain with, or you call it a hill I guess, but a lot of our mountains here are just small mountains, so they have trees all the way to the top. They're not in the alpine zone. So just adding in, you know, kind of a more of a tree shape to the mountain at the top by tapping, and it's less jagged. I'll bring a little bit of that color out in front here just to create a little more depth. Maybe we'll poke this back up right here, and then back down to the corner. All right, I'm going to take a short break here, let that dry, and then I'm going to start detailing in on the major. All right, I'm going to take a small pointed round brush. I'm going to take some burnt sienna, some blue, and a little bit of my alizarin. And I'm going to make this area here quite a bit darker. I'll make this top part nice and uniform. Okay, I'm going to go just a little bit more alizarin. And this first side here, I'm going to keep pretty dark. It's going to be on the shadow side of the balloon. I'm also going to paint in this little piece here a little bit darker. Okay, I'll carry that up the side. I'll make sure I go all the way out to the edge. All right, I'm going to take a little bit of yellow in with my alizarin. I'm going to make the inside of this opening here nice and uniform. I think I'll probably darken that up a little bit later. I'll see how it dries. Okay, I'm going to go a little bit more yellow. And on the front part of the basket here, I'm going to make that a little bit more yellowish, and then just a little bit of that alizarin in there to darken up the yellow. We'll put this side in more of a shadow color. Maybe a little bit darker. Then underneath, we'll go even darker. All right, so I'm going to go some alizarin and a little bit of white. On this side, we're going to go a little bit brighter. So we'll have this be, we'll have it be purple and yellow. Maybe we'll add in another color. I'm going to go yellow next. I'm going to add just a little bit of alizarin to that. On this side, we're going to have this next stripe be yellow. So we'll be adding in highlights and things like that as we go. For now, we're mostly just going to be painting in the stripes as evenly as we can. Okay, I'm going to go much more yellow on this side. I want to try to get this all the way filled in down to the base. I'm actually going to go back to my alizarin. Just try to get that nice and even. I'm going to bring this out just a touch more. Okay, and I'm going to go with that same alizarin, a little bit of yellow, a little bit more white. There's a little bump out for each piece of the balloon. So it should go just above the border here. It should just bump out just a little bit. And again, just take your time here. You can start to have the bottom portion down here be slightly darker. Because we're going to want the highlights to be up here. So you can see making this part down here just slightly darker will start to give it that rounded look. Go a little bit lighter up top. Not too much. Again, it will kind of bump out just a little bit. I'm going to go from here, let it bump out just a little bit. Okay, and I do want to take that up just a notch higher. Just want to be really careful there. Go back into our yellow, a little bit of white now. So it should be a little bit lighter. Just going just above that line. Bumping it out, and bringing it down. Going to start to get a little bit darker as we come down. So just a little bit of alizarin in there as we get down in through here. Maybe a little bit darker just at the top. All right, I'm going to take some yellow and a little bit of my alizarin, maybe a little touch of blue. And I'm going to block in this stripe now, so it's a little bit darker. And as we get lower, we can go a little bit darker. But we'll do that here in just a second. So again, we're kind of bumping this part out just a little bit. And then, like I said, a little bit darker. As we go lower. Okay, and then I'll go back to my alizarin. We'll add some white to that. So we're lightening it up a little bit. Go a little bit lighter with the white. As we come down lower here, I'm going to go a little bit darker. So we want to try to blend up into this section. Then down lower here, we're going a little bit darker still. So you can design your balloon however you would like, really. There's, lots of different patterns you could do, change it up, and things like that. So I'll go on to the other side now. So we're going darker this side. This is a little more in shadow. So remember bumping that out at the top just a little bit. So going just outside the border. So the colors you pick for your balloon, they could all have different significance. We're going to go a little bit darker here as we go down. Not too much, but just a little bit. Trying to keep our lines nice and even. Doesn't have to be super perfect, but want to go a little bit darker, just add a little touch of blue. So we get down here. Okay, I'm going to go a little bit more blue in that color. I'm going to darken up this opening again, just a little bit more. I'm also going to add just a little almost like a little highlight here out on this side to curve this part. So just subtle, have that fade off. All right, so I'm going to throw in a different color now to change up the pattern a little bit. I'm going to take some cerulean blue with my alizarin, some white. I'm going to try to get more of a bluish hue though. So I'm going to change up the pattern a little bit. Add a little ultramarine blue just to darken that up just a little bit as we come down here. Okay, and then I'll go with ultramarine blue, darken that up a little bit more on this side. We'll bump this out a little bit. Darken it up towards the bottom. Okay, I'm going to do another yellow one. So I want to clean that brush off really well. Go into my yellow, some of my white, and we'll bump that out again just a little bit. And we'll try to darken it up a little bit more down here. And blend it up. Okay, and then I'll do another pink one. So alizarin and white. Again, we'll bump that out. Go a little bit darker as we go lower. So this is probably the most difficult part right here, and we're almost done that. Just getting all these lines set up. I'll do a couple little touch-ups here. I'll clean that brush off. Just touch up right here. Go back to my yellow. I think what I'll do is I'll go into my blue. I think I'm going to change this stripe here to blue. Almost got a drip away from me. You gotta be careful with those sometimes when using water. Then I'll go ultramarine blue, so quite dark. We'll darken up this one and make this one blue too. And our pattern will be pretty even, you know. Doesn't really matter. You can pretty much throw any colors up here and it'll work, just because hot air balloons are pretty neat, so get away with pretty much any pattern. All right, now what I want to do is a few highlights. So I'm going to clean my brush off. going to start with the, actually we'll start with the yellow. We'll go into that yellow. I'm going to do a highlight. So you have to think of a sphere. It'll get darker up towards the top and down towards the bottom. So a highlight right through. So we're going to fade that out. Add a little white to that. Go into that highlight spot again. Fade it down, fade it up. Okay, so we'll go a little bit lighter. Again, starting in that highlight spot, and then inching our way up a little bit, and then down. A little bit more white. Start in that same spot. And we'll carry the highlight up a little bit further. A little bit lighter. Okay, then I'll go a little bit darker. We'll move up to this one here. Go a little bit lighter. Okay, and then I'll go to my blue. A little bit of white. Just inching it out a little bit there from the highlight area. So I want to start going a little bit darker as we go down. Blend up. A little bit darker yet. Go back to that lighter color. Okay, I want to keep layering this paint just to build up the highlight. Just slowly work it up into the darker color, then down. All right, then we go to the next yellow one. So clean the brush off really well. We'll go into that yellow, grab a bunch of white, make sure you don't get any blue in there. That might be a little too light, so we'll go a little bit more yellow ochre. And we're going to inch up and down, so we'll highlight here towards the top, then grab more yellow ochre so the color shifts a little bit darker as we move up. You can see I'm doing little overlapping dash marks. That way you get more of a kind of a nice transition. Go darker again as we come down. Okay, I'll go back. So a little bit lighter. Then I want to push that highlight up and down. Okay, we'll move on to the next pink one. Go a little bit darker. Work that down a little bit more. Start fading it out. Okay, while I'm on that color, I'm going to go back to this one here, lighten up. Then with that same color, we'll hit the spot. Go a little bit darker. I want to continue building up this highlight area here. I'm going to go back to my blue. Some white. Not too bright. Okay, then we want to push that up and down. Slowly getting darker as we come down. Slowly working away here. Transitions should be really subtle. All right, I'll move over now to this blue one that's in shadow. So you can see going a little bit darker with the highlight. I'm also leaving a little dark line closest to this pink one because now we're on the other side and the other side bumps out. We'll just kind of scrub and fade it down. Try to tidy up this line here. right through here. I'm going to go a little bit darker blue. So we come down here. I'm also going to go over here, go about the same color, just so they're cohesive. I'll go a little bit lighter. Right up through here. All right, so I'll go a little bit lighter up on this highlight spot. Go a tad lighter. So you want to build these layers up slowly, as you can see. All right, so I'll clean my brush off now. I'm going to go into my alizarin and a little bit of white. I want to go a little bit lighter now over here on this piece. So we want to go a little bit darker as we go lower. Tidy up the lines. So add a little bit of blue in there as we come down here. That will cool it off and darken it up. So a little more blue, ultramarine blue. Go a little bit lighter right through here where these two colors connect. want to go a little bit lighter in through this section, so in the highlight area. Can go a tad lighter. Now we'll just kind of pull down with our finger. All right, so now we'll darken this next yellow piece. So I'll add a little more yellow ochre to my palette. I'm actually going to start, I think here, we'll see here. I think I'm going to start with just yellow ochre. Yep, that's good, pretty good. So just yellow ochre up in that highlight spot. And pushing it up. Tidying up the line on the edge. And as we get lower, we want to darken that up some. So we're going to add some more alizarin to my palette. So I'm drying up here a little bit. Little tiny bit of alizarin just to darken that. So we come down. Go a little bit darker down at the very base. Since I have that color going, might as well touch this spot up a little bit. And also, I'll just hit this spot just a little. I don't want to overdo the highlight here. I want to keep that mostly in shadow. Just want to bump it out just a little bit more. I'm going to clean my brush off. And I'm going to go into my yellow with a little bit of white. And we'll lighten up the highlight spot here. I want that highlight spot all the way around because it is a rounded object, so there will be highlights even in the shadows. Sometimes it's reflected light, but we just want to indicate that that's a rounded piece there. And finally, I'm going to go back to my alizarin with a little bit of blue in it, a touch of white. We'll go a little bit darker up at the top here, and we also want to round this piece out here a little bit. Push this edge just a touch further out. Then we'll fade it down. Just want to push that little corner piece up a little bit higher. Go. I want to go with my ultramarine blue. Try to go a little bit darker down here. Okay, I kind of want to touch up that yellow just a little bit. Go a little bit lighter, just right up here. Not much, just a little touch. And feather it down. I'll actually extend this part down a little bit too. I'm going to clean my brush off. I'm going to go back to my yellow. I'm going to put more white on here because I kind of got some other paint mixed in on my white, and I don't want to paint with non-pure colors. So I'm going to go with my white, my yellow. I'm going to really bring this highlight up now. Also going to touch up this edge right here. But I want to kind of just pull each side there, get a little bit of a highlight. I'm going to go more white. Push and pull down. I'll go a little bit more yellow. And over here, we haven't really hit this spot yet. We'll go a little bit more yellow as we go down through the base. I like that color at the very bottom though, so I'm just going to lightly pull the color down just to give it a blended look without changing the value too much. I'm going to push this edge up a little bit higher to give it that nice rounded look. Go a little bit more white. Okay, so getting a little bit of a shine now on the balloon. Nice effect. I'll clean my brush off. I'll go into my alizarin and some white. Start getting a little bit more of a shine. Push this up a little bit higher. Take that same color and go over here. Nice shine on this one. I'll go slightly darker since this one's so much darker over here. I'll put that shine here, pull that down, push it up. Go slightly lighter. I'm going to clean my brush off. I want to go into my white, then into my blue. Try to pull that down a little bit further. Go again. Lighten that spot up. Pull down, push up. I'll go darker now, so less white. We'll hit this spot over here. Same thing while the paint's wet, pulling it down, pushing it up. All right, we'll do a little bit in this next line here, so I'm going to clean my brush off. Go into my alizarin, a little bit of white. Go lighter. We'll try to push that down a little bit further. Really light pressure on the brush. Now a little bit on that yellow one. And maybe a little hair of highlighter right here. Not much. All right, while I'm working with the yellow, I'll go a little bit more white. So now we're kind of putting in hot spots. Hit a little hot spot on this piece here. Alright, so I'm going to let that sit there, I think. Don't want to overdo it. I'm going to clean my brush off. I'm going to hit the hot spot here. Okay, and sometimes you might have to go a little bit darker, a little bit lighter, and go back and forth to really get a nice color. So don't be afraid to, if you feel like you went too light, to go a little bit darker and tidy it up. Just want to try to keep that top part's a little bit darker and then the bottom part's a little bit darker. A little too dark there. All right, we'll go a little bit lighter right here. And a little bit right there, not too much. I'll go back to the lighter alizarin mix.